Donald Trump will return to the campaign trail, visiting the Midwest for his first official rallies since clinching the 2024 Republican nomination nearly a month ago. In Grand Rapids, Michigan, Trump is set to meet with state party leaders and then deliver a speech on what his campaign calls, quote, Biden's border bloodbath. Remember that outrage about bloodbath a few weeks ago? Yeah, Trump is now totally leaning into that. That's what always happens. Trump will then head to Green Bay, Wisconsin to deliver another speech on the day the state holds its presidential primaries. Since Biden and Trump became their party's presumptive nominees last month, Biden has visited 8 swing states, while Trump, 0. Ahead of that Wisconsin rally, Trump called into a local radio show yesterday where he falsely claimed to have won the state in 2020 and then spewed a lot of offensive rhetoric about migrants. Joining us now, NBC News senior national politics reporter, Jonathan Allen. John, good to see you. I hope you enjoyed opening day yesterday there in the nation's capital. Much has been made of Trump's rather light campaign schedule over this last month. Some of it because, frankly, his campaign is short of cash to put on these expensive rallies. They had to pull down one they were hoping to have in Arizona. But he's back on the road today. Talk to us what we should expect to hear as he visits 2 very important states, Michigan and Wisconsin.
He's going to Michigan to talk about border security. He hasn't been to Michigan since February 17th. Obviously, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, that sort of industrial corridor has been pivotal in the last 2 presidential elections. So a state I think you're likely to see Donald Trump in a lot over the course of the next several months. And then in Wisconsin, he's got a more traditional rally in Green Bay. And, you know, I'll be interested to hear what differences there may be in Wisconsin and if there is a difference in the messaging in Wisconsin than there is in Michigan. But I would expect to hear a lot of grievance from Donald Trump. You know, this sort of sets the tone for what we're going to see as trial begins April 15th in New York. We're going to see him on the road, you know, once, maybe twice a week when he gets breaks in the trial, either on the weekend or in the middle of the week. And, you know, otherwise we're going to see him in court. So this is one of his last opportunities before that moment to try to rally the troops.
Yeah, I think that dynamic is so interesting. First of all, that he hasn't been out there on the road in a while. This is going to be his first appearance in front of a crowd in quite some time. Who knows what he'll say? We may have gotten a preview with his unhinged screed on Easter Sunday on Truth Social. But also, he's going to be limited to what he can do, because in 2 weeks' time, he's going to have to be in a quorum each and every day. How is his campaign planning to manage that?
I mean, this has been the biggest challenge for them all along, and they knew that it was going to come to a head, you know, at some point. Where the calendar is a major conflict for him. It limits what he can do. It limits where he can be. He's going to have to be in New York most of the time. Obviously, he prefers to be in Palm Beach or even in Bedminster, you know, close enough to commute to New York. But he's limited in fundraising. He's limited in his ability to go out on the campaign trail. Certainly limited in his ability to go, say, to Arizona, which is a longer trip than it is to Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania to do campaigning. So this is a logistical challenge for his campaign, to be sure. You know, they're going to try to make sure that it's not more than just a logistical challenge, that it doesn't prevent him from getting his message across where he wants to get it across, that it doesn't undercut his message. Obviously, nobody wants to sit in a hush money case involving an alleged affair with a porn star. At least most people wouldn't. And, you know, so make sure it doesn't undercut him entirely.
Yeah, that's not campaigning 101, to be sure. So let's talk about his fundraising. You know, President Biden was in Wisconsin maybe 2 weeks back, and while there, the DNC announced happily that they were opening up about 36 campaign offices across the state. Trump doesn't have any. The Republicans don't have any, not yet. So much this is because of the cash deficit. Talk to us more about that financial disadvantage.
That's a huge financial disadvantage, and the Trump folks say that they don't need as much money as Biden to win. And that's probably true. We've seen 2 elections in 2016 and 2020 where Donald Trump was outspent, and in one he won the election, and one he lost the election. But there is a question about whether he's going to have enough money to compete. He is diverting so much of the money that is devoted to his campaign apparatus, so not necessarily the campaign proper, but the super PAC outside of it, devoting so much money to lawyers. People who donate to him know that a lot of that money is going to end up with lawyers, going to end up defending him in court. So he's really behind the 8 ball. the Biden campaign is stockpiling cash, and I think they're going to use that cash advantage to try to make Donald Trump make choices about where he's going to spend money. It is always better to have more money than less money in politics.
And lastly, John, let's talk polls. We opened the show noting that Joe Biden has put up a little bit of a lead in some national polls. It's close, but the trends are heading his way. We've seen the same dynamic in a few battlegrounds, particularly the three you just mentioned, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. How is the Trump campaign feeling about what appears to be some Biden momentum?
It's very difficult to get them to speak in any way that suggests that there's anything bad for Donald Trump at any time, because they know that they'll be drummed out of Trump world if they do that. But the truth is, it is rare to see. It's rare to see movement in this race, and you're seeing it, as you suggested, certainly moderately, but you're seeing a significant and noticeable jump for Joe Biden. That is not good for Trump world. That's not good for Donald Trump. And we'll see if that continues. It is, over the course of the Biden presidency, there have not been a lot of periods of time where polling has looked good for him, and certainly in the last few weeks, it is getting a little bit better for him. So Democrats should be pleased with that.
And if past his prologue, we know that pressure, political or legal, causes outbursts from Donald Trump. We'll be watching what he has to say tonight.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.